After deliberating all day today, a Washington County jury has found 2 men guilty of murdering a 17-year-old in Machias in 2021. Emmanuel Ramos of Roxbury, Massachusetts, and Juan Ortiz of Concord, New Hampshire, were also found guilty of robbery with a firearm. They're 2 of 5 people accused of the murder. 2 men have already pleaded guilty, and 1 is awaiting trial. Both the prosecution and defense say the murder was the lethal result of an attempt to rob Brandon Guerrero of his money and drugs. Guerrero was found dead at Court Street Cemetery on November 4th, 2021. He was shot in his back and in his legs. The gun used to kill Guerrero was never found. During their closing statement, prosecutors reviewed the evidence of 10 fired cartridge cases found at the scene. They say the excessive force used showed the intent to cause death. Due to the involvement of drugs, the defense said most witnesses called were unreliable. The defense also pointed to police failure during the investigation and accused them of coaching witnesses during interrogations.